Hi, I'm Kendra Harper, 34, living in Minneapolis. New Year's Eve in Knoxville, Tennessee. The house was lit with candles, champagne glasses, clinking countdown clock ticking toward midnight. Everyone was smiling until 11:58 p.m. My younger brother Bryce set his glass down, looked me dead in the eye, and said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. Even if you disappeared from this family tonight, nobody would need you anyway. Dad gave a slow nod. Mom smirked like it was the most natural thing in the world. The room didn't freeze. It just accepted it. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stood up, slipped on my coat, and walked out the front door while the first fireworks exploded overhead. No one called after me. No one even turned around. That silence you just heard, that was the exact moment everything I'd been holding together for 16 years started to come undone. And trust me, what happened in the days that followed caught every single one of them completely off guard. If you've ever been the one person your family treated like an ATM with an expiration date, stay with me. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this one hits different. Let's get into it. People always assume I left Knoxville because I wanted the big city life. The truth is simpler. By the time I was 14, I was already the only one keeping the lights on. Our house sat on a cracked street where every driveway had at least one car on blocks. Dad drove a rattling delivery van that broke down more than it ran. Mom cleaned offices at night and came home smelling like bleach and other people's coffee. Bills stacked up faster than either of them could open the envelopes. So I got jobs. Babysitting at 13 turned into flipping burgers at 14, then stocking shelves until 2 in the morning on school nights. I handed every paycheck over without ceremony. The electric company got paid. The water stayed hot. Nobody ever asked where the money came from, and nobody ever said thank you. I learned early that survival in our house was quiet. You fixed things before anyone noticed they were broken. You didn't brag. You didn't expect applause. School was different. Numbers made sense when nothing else did. Teachers saw something in the quiet girl who finished math tests in half the time and started steering me toward computers. I spent weekends at the library teaching myself code on the public machines. By 16, I was building basic inventory systems for small shops around town and getting paid under the table. Every extra dollar still went home. Roof patches, new tires for Dad's van, braces for my younger brother when Mom's insurance laughed at the claim. At 18, I won a full scholarship to the University of Minnesota. The day the acceptance letter arrived, Mom cried for 10 minutes, then asked if the scholarship covered books. Dad shook my hand like I'd just been drafted. I packed one suitcase and took the first flight I could afford with my own savings. When the plane lifted off, I remember looking down at the smoky haze over Knoxville and feeling nothing but relief. Minneapolis hit me with wind that could cut glass, but the paycheck that came with my first real job was warm enough to ignore the cold. Data engineer at a fintech firm downtown. Starting salary felt obscene compared to what I grew up on. Within a month, I opened a second checking account and set up automatic transfers back home. $500 the first month. $800 the next. Soon it was never less than $1,500, sometimes $3,000 when the emergencies piled up. Medical bills when Dad threw his back out and missed 3 months of work. Property tax jumps the county never warned anyone about. The new furnace when the old one finally died in January. I paid without questions, without lectures, without keeping score out loud. I told myself this was what family did. This was love in the only language they understood. 16 years of transfers, hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing south on the first of every month like clockwork. I kept the spreadsheets anyway, neat rows of dates and amounts, because that's how my brain stays calm. I never emailed them. I never brought them up on the rare phone calls or the even rarer visits. I just kept sending, believing that one day the silence would turn into something that felt like gratitude. It never did. Instead, I got jokes about how fancy my life must be, how I probably forgot what Tennessee barbecue tasted like, how I was too busy for the people who raised me. Every comment landed like a small paper cut, nothing deep enough to bleed, just enough to sting. I swallowed it all and kept the money moving. While I kept believing my quiet transfers were holding everything together, Bryce had a different story he told the world. Bryce was 23 when he first texted me a blurry photo of a vacant storefront in Albuquerque's Nob Hill district. "This is it," the message read. "My coffee shop. I'm doing it." No question mark. No request. Just a statement like the decision was already final. 2 days later, he sent the lease agreement and a list of equipment that made my stomach drop. 2 industrial Italian espresso machines, a commercial roaster, custom-built counters, the works. Total price tag just north of $400,000. I signed as guarantor the same week. The condo he picked for the first location went under my name too because his credit score was still recovering from college mistakes. I wired the down payment, covered closing costs, paid the first year of property taxes up front. When the second location popped up 18 months later in the downtown arts district, I did it all again. Another condo title, another round of machines, another marketing budget that included billboards and sponsored Instagram reels. Bryce named the shops Bryce and Bean. Not Harper and Bean. Not a family name. Just his. The branding was clean, minimalist desert colors and hand-drawn logos. Within a year, both places were packed. Lines out the door on weekend mornings, local influencers taking photos in front of the neon sign articles in Albuquerque magazine, calling him the 20-something who built an empire on grit and great coffee. He started doing podcasts. Every guest asked the same question. How did you fund this at 23 with no investors? Bryce's answer never changed. I saved every penny from side hustles, lived on almost nothing, and believed in the dream. 100% self-made. No handouts, no safety net. He'd laugh, lean into the mic, and add, "Some people thought I was crazy." Turns out they were wrong. The lie grew legs. A regional business journal ran a full-page profile titled, "From Zero to 2 Locations in Under 3 Years." The writer quoted Bryce saying he turned down multiple investors because he refused to give up control. My name never appeared. Not once. I watched it all from Minneapolis. Every new post, every interview clip, every story where he posed with the delivery van I'd bought outright and titled in my name so the business could stay insured. I'd refresh the shop's Instagram and see captions like "Built this with my own hands" under photos of the custom wood bars I paid craftsmen to install. Comments poured in. Inspiration, true entrepreneur, proof you don't need rich parents. He never tagged me. Never mentioned the wire transfers that covered payroll the first 8 months. Never acknowledged the 6-figure marketing campaign I funded when foot traffic dipped during road construction. Instead, he doubled down. Limited edition merch dropped with slogans like "Self-Made Roast" printed across the chest. Local radio invited him as a guest expert on young entrepreneurs who bootstrap their way to success. Bryce accepted every invite. He wore the same soft smile, told the same polished story, and always ended with some version of, "If I can do it," starting with "Nothing anyone can." Nothing. That word started to feel personal. I still wired money every time he asked, no hesitation, no conditions. I told myself the shops were his dream, and I was just helping family. I bookmarked the articles, saved the podcasts, screenshotted the posts where strangers called my brother a genius. Each one landed like another small cut. Bryce never noticed. The year both locations turned profitable, he threw himself a party at the downtown shop and livestreamed the whole thing. Champagne custom cakes, a banner that read, 2 years self-made. At the end of the stream, he raised a glass to the camera and said, "To everyone who said I couldn't do it alone, thank you for the motivation." I closed the laptop and stared at the dark screen for a long time. A few days later, I booked my flight home for New Year's Eve. I flew into Knoxville on the 30th, picked up a rental SUV at the airport, and drove the familiar 40 minutes to the house I grew up in. The porch light flickered the same way it had for 2 decades. Dad opened the door before I could knock, arms open for the quick, obligatory hug. Mom followed right behind, kissing my cheek and immediately commenting on how thin I looked. Their smiles were bright, automatic, already exhausted. Bryce showed up an hour later with Delaney hanging off his arm, both of them dressed like they were heading to a photo shoot after this. He pulled me into a one-armed squeeze and announced to the room, "The prodigal daughter finally remembers where home is." Everyone laughed like it was the best joke of the night. The first hour stayed surface-level safe. Shrimp cocktail on the coffee table, old Christmas albums spinning on the record player. Mom refused to retire. The same stories about sledding disasters and childhood pets. Dad asked about flight delays. Mom wanted to know if Minneapolis ever got real barbecue. Bryce steered every lull back to his shops, dropping numbers about weekend sales and the influencer who'd tagged him in a reel that hit 200,000 views. Then the needle started slipping in. I offered to help with the roof Dad had been grumbling about since summer. He waved a hand, chuckling. "We've learned to get by without handouts from the big city, Kendra," Mom added, sipping her wine. "Some of us figured out how to budget years ago." Bryce leaned back on the couch, arm draped around Delaney. "Not everybody needs a corporate paycheck to feel like they matter." I laughed it off, poured another glass, and changed the subject. As midnight crept closer, the jabs got sharper. Mom sighed every time I glanced at my phone. Dad muttered something about people who couldn't unplug for 5 minutes. Bryce kept circling back to the investors he'd turned down, how real entrepreneurs never sell pieces of their dream. "Control is everything," he repeated, raising his glass like a toast to himself. 11:45. The TV was on volume low, showing the ball in Times Square. The countdown clock glowed red. 11:50. Bryce stood to refill his drink, turned and looked straight at me. "You know what I think about sometimes?" His voice carried over the music. "What would actually happen if you just disappeared from this family completely?" He let the words hang, swirling the ice in his glass. "Because honestly, Kendra, even if you vanished tonight, nobody here would need you anyway." Dad's lips curved into that quiet, satisfied nod he used when he didn't want to say it out loud. Mom lifted her champagne in a tiny mock toast, eyes shining with something that looked a lot like triumph. 11:58. The room waited. For tears. For yelling. For anything. I set my flute down, stood and walked to the entryway. Took my coat off the hook, slid my arms in slowly. The first firework cracked outside, flashing blue across the windows. I opened the front door. Cold rushed in sharp with gunpowder and January. I stepped onto the porch. Behind me, the TV voice started the final countdown. 10, 9, 8. No one moved. No one said my name. 7, 6, 5. I pulled the door closed with a soft click. 4, 3, 2. I was halfway down the iced-over steps when the sky exploded in color. 1 Happy New Year. I reached the rental, climbed in, and drove away, while the neighborhood lit up in celebration and cheers spilled from every house on the street. By the time I hit the highway, the fireworks were already fading in the rearview mirror. The next morning came in cold and silent. I woke up in the hotel room with the heater rattling and the curtains still drawn. My phone showed 9:17 a.m. and 37 missed notifications. None from the house in Knoxville. I brewed the single-serve coffee, sat on the edge of the unmade bed, and stared at the black screen until it lit up on its own. Tessa's name flashed first. We'd been friends since freshman orientation in Minnesota. She was the only person who knew the full extent of what I'd been sending south for 16 years. The call connected on the second ring. "You okay?" she asked before I even said hello. "I left before midnight." "Good. Because your brother just posted the most tone-deaf story I've ever seen." She sent a screenshot while we were still on the line. Bryce champagne flute raised Delaney kissing his cheek, caption in bold white letters. "Another year of proving the doubters wrong. Built everything myself. Happy New Year from the Bryce and Bean family." I closed the photo and opened Instagram myself. The story was still up, viewed by thousands, hearts pouring in. Tessa kept talking. He tagged the locations, Kendra. Both shops. Like last night never happened. I didn't answer. I set the phone on speaker, opened my laptop on the desk by the window, and logged into the password manager I hadn't touched in years. One by one, I pulled up every account I'd been paying from the background. First folder, the house in Knoxville. Mortgage statements dating back 9 years, 80% paid off, all automatic drafts from my primary checking. Title still jointly held with Dad and Mom because the bank required it for the refinance. Second folder, 2 condo titles in Albuquerque, both solely in my name, purchased 18 months apart. Commercial loans attached, interest only for the first 5 years, payments routed through the same account. Third folder, the delivery van, the industrial roasters, the custom counters. Every piece of equipment listed as business assets under the LLC I'd formed for Bryce because his credit couldn't qualify a loan. Fourth folder, Easton's College. Full ride didn't cover everything. Housing books, meal plan, emergency fund. 4 years of transfers labeled Harper Family Support so the financial aid office wouldn't flag it. I sat back and looked at the screen, the way you look at a house you've been living in but never really saw. Every line, every balance, every scheduled payment pointed back to me. Tessa's voice cut through the quiet. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer right away. I clicked into the banking app, navigated to scheduled transfers, and found the one labeled Knoxville Mortgage, first of month. Next payment due in 24 hours. Amount $4,800. My cursor hovered. 16 years of muscle memory told me to leave it alone. 16 years of silence told me the same thing. I clicked edit. Recurring off. Effective immediate. Confirmation page asked twice. "Are you sure you want to cancel this transfer?" I clicked yes. Both times. The screen refreshed. Status canceled. I closed the laptop, picked up the phone again, and told Tessa one down. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since New Year's Eve. "There's more, isn't there?" "A lot more." I spent the rest of the morning printing documents, scanning signatures, taking screenshots of every account summary. By checkout time, I had a folder an inch thick and a plan that felt less like revenge and more like waking up. That single canceled payment was only the beginning. 10 days later, the real storm started. Day 2, I emailed the title company in Albuquerque with signed quitclaim deeds, transferring both condo units from my name alone to Bryce Harper, sole owner, effective immediately. Same email attached an addendum assigning the full remaining balance of the commercial loans to him personally. I hit send before my second cup of coffee. By noon, the lender had already processed the paperwork and sent Bryce the welcome packet as the new borrower. Day 4, the bank called me to confirm the title transfer on the delivery van. I told them the business owner was taking full responsibility now and authorized repossession if payments lapsed. They scheduled the tow truck for the following morning. I watched the live GPS dot as the truck rolled up to the Nob Hill location at 6:03 a.m. Bryce's frantic texts started at 6:07. "Kendra, what the hell is going on with my van?" I left it on red. Day 6, I logged into Easton's university portal, using the parent access he'd given me freshman year. One click paused all pending disbursements. Another click canceled the monthly allowance that covered his off-campus apartment and food. The confirmation email went to both of us. His first message came 20 minutes later. "Sis, did something happen with the account? Rent is due tomorrow. Read." No reply. Day 7. The mortgage servicer in Knoxville sent the standard 30-day grace period notice to Dad and Mom because the January payment never arrived. I forwarded the PDF to my trash and cleared it. Day 8. Dad called first. I let it ring out. Voicemail: Kendra. "The bank says we missed a payment. Must be some kind of glitch. Can you check on your end?" Deleted. Mom tried next, voice tight. "Honey, whatever's going on, we can talk about it. Just fix the house payment, okay?" Straight to voicemail, then archive. Bryce escalated to all caps by day 9. 10 missed calls, 37 texts that went from confusion to bargaining to rage. "You're seriously doing this over one comment? I have payroll tomorrow. Put the van back. You can't just take everything I worked for." Each one sat unanswered. Easton switched to pleading. I don't know what happened between you guys, but I have midterms next week, and my landlord is already threatening eviction. I screenshotted every message, saved them in a folder labeled Evidence, and kept working. Day 10. The lender notified Bryce that his new personal credit report now reflected six-figure commercial debt and 2 investment properties. The same day, the university placed a registration hold on Easton's account for unpaid balance. The same day, the repossession company sent me confirmation photos of the van secured in their lot. That evening, the family group chat exploded. First Dad, "This has gone far enough." Then Mom, "You're destroying your brother's life." Then Bryce, "You're jealous, and always have been? Fix this, now." Easton added a single crying emoji and the words, "I might have to drop out." I removed myself from the chat, blocked every Harper number, and turned off read receipts across every platform. My phone finally went quiet. Within 72 hours of the last transfer cancellation, every pillar I'd been holding up for 16 years was officially someone else's problem. 2 weeks after that, the consequences arrived all at once. I was already in London, had been for 9 days, living out of a serviced apartment in Canary Wharf, while I finished onboarding at the new firm. The job offer came the same week I canceled the last transfer, senior data engineering lead, 30% raise, full relocation package. I accepted before the HR woman finished her sentence. Back in Knoxville, the certified letter from the mortgage servicer landed on the kitchen table on a Tuesday morning. Dad opened it first. Notice of intent to foreclose, 90 days to cure or lose the house. Mom called the bank in tears. The representative explained politely that the account had been in default since January, and no arrangement had been made. Dad's name was on the loan, but the payment history for the last decade showed a single source that had suddenly vanished. In Albuquerque, Bryce received 2 separate emails the same day, one from the landlord of the downtown location, terminating the lease for non-payment of common area charges, the other from the lender accelerating the full balance of both commercial loans after the title transfer triggered a due-on-sale clause. By Friday, both shops had paper signs on the doors closed until further notice. Suppliers stopped delivering. Employees walked out when paychecks bounced. The local news ran a 30-second segment titled, "Popular Coffee Chain Suddenly Shutters." Delaney moved out that weekend. She left the engagement ring he'd bought with the business line of credit on the kitchen counter and posted a single Instagram story of suitcases by the door. Caption, "Choosing Peace." At the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Easton received an email from the registrar, administrative withdrawal, effective immediately due to unpaid balance. He had 48 hours to vacate university-affiliated housing. His phone blew up with texts from roommates asking what was going on. He had no answer. The family converged on the old house that Sunday. Phones came out. Calls, voicemails, texts, emails, even a Facebook message from Mom's rarely used account. Dad, 23 missed calls, 8 voicemails that started calm and ended shouting. Mom, 31 missed calls, voice cracking on the last one. "We're going to be homeless, Kendra, please." Bryce, 47 missed calls, texts that cycled between threats and begging, then screenshots of the foreclosure notice with, "This is your fault," in all caps. Easton, 19 missed calls, 1 voice message that just said my name, and then silence. I let every single one ring out. I had already changed my US number the day I landed at Heathrow. The UK SIM only accepted calls from Tessa and my new work contacts. Monday morning, I walked into the glass tower on Canada Square, badge clipped to my coat, and started my first official day. No one in the open plan office knew my last name carried the same weight as a death sentence 3,000 miles away. By the end of that week, the house in Knoxville was listed for sheriff's sale. Both Bryce and Bean locations were dark and empty. Delaney had blocked Bryce on everything, and Easton was sleeping on a friend's couch with no plan for next semester. I ordered takeaway. Curry sat by the window overlooking the Thames and watched the city lights reflect on the water. 6 months later, I was still watching those same lights. The apartment is small, 12th floor, 1 wall, all window. Every evening, the Thames turns gold, then black, then gold again as the city switches on. I drink tea instead of coffee now. I run along the embankment at dawn. I have colleagues who only know me as the American who moved over from Minneapolis, nothing more. My phone is quiet in a way it has never been quiet before. No surprise transfers needed. No 3 a.m. texts about broken furnaces or overdue tuition. The inbox that once held hundreds of unread family messages now sits at 0. I changed every account, every password, every emergency contact. Knoxville might as well be another planet. I still check the local news out of habit. The house on the east side sold at auction for less than the remaining mortgage. Bryce's LinkedIn says he's exploring new opportunities. Easton is working nights at a warehouse outside Chattanooga. Dad and Mom moved into a 1-bedroom rental 20 minutes from their old street. None of them have my new number, my new address, or my new last name on any paperwork anywhere. Sometimes I wonder if they talk about me, if they blame me out loud or just in the silence between them, if they ever in the middle of packing boxes or signing closing papers, one of them paused and thought, "She warned us with 16 years of receipts." They never will, and that's fine. The hardest lesson I learned isn't that family can turn on you. It's that when the people who are supposed to love you most look you in the eye and say out loud that your absence would change nothing, believe them the first time. I used to think love meant proving them wrong, staying giving, fixing, forgiving over and over until they finally saw my worth. Turns out the only person who needed to see it was me, so I stopped proving. I stopped answering. I stopped paying. And the world didn't end. It just got quieter. London is teaching me how loud silence can be when it's chosen instead of forced. I sleep through the night. I laugh at jokes without calculating who might need money next week. I walk past cafes that aren't named after my brother and feel nothing. There is no dramatic reconciliation waiting around the corner. No tearful airport scene. No letter that begins. "We were wrong. I don't want any of it." The door isn't just closed, the hinges have been removed. If they ever find this video years from now, they'll know exactly why. To everyone watching who's ever been treated like a bank with a pulse when they tell you they don't need you, take them at their word. Walk away. Build something that's actually yours. The peace on the other side is worth every dollar you stop sending. That's the end of my story. Thanks for listening.